welcome to the design workshop. This week we'll be talking about universal usability. So, just anyone have some idea of what universal usability is? No? All right. It should be an interesting workshop. So what we will cover in this workshop is what is universal usability and the different types of user disabilities. So like these four we'll be talking about mostly in this workshop. However, there are many more. And also what kind of problems may arise from certain design decisions that may negatively impact certain people, certain players, and what we can do as designers to help solve those issues in the long run. So yeah, we kind of asked what is universal usability. Does anyone who may not know what it is want to take a stab at what the definition means?
Making games more playable for people who have disabilities.
Yes, that is
using
one.
mechanics.
It can be mechanics. It doesn't just have to be mechanics. It can be, we can do other things to help players. All right. So the definition of universal usability is the idea that we should communicate our design to be usable for every type of user, which I pull straight from Ben Schneiderman, who wrote a book called Designing the User Interface. It's a book that you actually read in like Informatics 131, which is a course I took last quarter. Here's another quote as well from Satoru Iwata, ex-president of Nintendo, who says, "Video games are meant to be just one thing, fun for everyone." And this is what we will kind of keep in mind to kind of go through universal usability. Any questions? All right. Oh yeah. So we want to help make games that are fun for everyone, even if some players have certain handicaps. It's not fair for certain players to not be able to enjoy a game that you create or you creating an experience. It's not fair for those players to not be able to enjoy them just because they have some abnormalities. And us designers can help start bridging this gap early on in our design processes by keeping these players in mind. Yeah. All right. Before we start discussing universal usability, there's this idea called the cut curve effect. Does anyone know what the cut curve effect is? Or have any idea what that might mean?
I'm guessing it's like the curve for like rolling up ramps kind of thing for like handicapped people. Kind of cut the curve so it's far lower for people who can't access it. It's kind of universal usability kind of makes sense.
So like in the fact of like helping the handicapped go up the sidewalks.
Exactly.
Do you like does it have an effect other than just helping the handicapped?
I mean, it's easier overall, I guess, for the rest of them, for the rest of the people as well.
Yes, that's exactly the idea.
Okay.
And so that's on a more figurative level. We can also apply this concept on a figurative level as well, as opposed to the literal level. I have definitions right here. So it's making public spaces available for the disabled benefits everyone. So this cut curb, you know, the idea was that it's supposed to help handicapped people get on the sidewalks, but it actually is also convenient for even people who are just walking, so they don't have to like step above the curb. They can just walk through the ramp, or even a biker can use it as well. And we can apply this idea to game design, as certain design decisions that we might make to help people with disabilities can also be convenient or helpful to those who may not have those same disabilities. But having the option there is very helpful. So, any questions before we move on? Yes.
What would be an example of that within the game?
So we have a couple examples in the slides, but if we want to look at one early on, there's small text and there's big text, where people who might have low vision cannot see subtitles like as well if it's far away. So we can give the option to like increase the size of text to make it easier for those people to see it. And it doesn't just help people with low vision, but it can also help people who just want to see text from far away, even if they have perfect vision. you know, stuff like that. Yes.
When you have this effect, is there ever times where people will take advantage of it, and then what really happened is you just push everyone's capability up the same level instead of bringing the handicap up?
Yes, that's also possible. And it's a good thing you brought it up, because in this workshop, I am kind of advocating for universal usability, but keeping that in the back of your head as well as a designer is also pretty important, especially if you look at like competitive games, where certain features that you might want to implement to help people with disabilities might also just like ruin the balance of your game. And we can.
Oh, finish what you're gonna say?
Oh yeah, I'm pretty good.
Okay, I was just also gonna point out that like when you're doing accessibility right, you're probably gonna be helping everyone, and that's probably a good thing, right? The point is not to give people tools to compensate for their disabilities. The point is to give people tools so their disabilities are a non-issue. And if everyone else likes those tools, cool, you're all using the same tools, you're all playing the same game. The disability just isn't a factor anymore. That's what the end game is. So if everyone likes it, cool, you've done your job well, you capitalize on the curriculum effect. It's not going to give anyone an advantage or disadvantage, because if you're doing it right, the tool intrinsically is going to mitigate the disability no matter how many people are using the tool. It's not, right? We're not about giving people handicaps in accessibility. We're about giving people access. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I want to come back to this conversation in a later slide, because there is something I want to discuss in particular at that point, but I have it in a much later slide. However, I want you guys to keep that in the back of your head, because it is also possible to have the inverse effect in some cases where you're designing for disability. Yes.
I just walked in late. Can you like brief me up on what you just?
Yeah, so this workshop is about universal usability in game design and how we can help make design decisions that'll benefit those who may have disabilities or abnormalities. And so yeah, we're just using game design as a tool to help us bridge the gap between players and the game's experience. Cool. Any others? All right, I think we can move on. So the first type of disability I want to go over is motor. So motor disabilities are like when you're pressing a button or a sequence of buttons in a very fast order. So this might be like fighting games or just like button mashing type of games. And the problem with those type of games is that certain people with motor disabilities might not be able to complete those tasks, not because it might be because they don't want to, but because it can cause them pain or they're just unable to. And that if they're not able to do these tasks that you're demanding them, it can ruin the experience of the game and maybe prevent them from proceeding further. So does anyone know any examples of like potential problems with motor? Yes.
I experienced this. I don't have a disability, but I'm just not very good at repeatedly pressing the same button.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was playing, Resident Evil 4, and I got to a point where you had to just make it through a whole bunch of button prompts.
Okay.
Just repeating it, and I couldn't make it through for an extended period of time. So I had my little brother come up and play through that whole section for me because there's no workaround, except for getting someone else to do it.
And it's a good thing you brought that up, because those type of things, quick time events, are actually the easiest ones to poke fun of for this kind of thing. Because, if anything, I'll just show the next slide. Quick time events. They're usually the biggest culprit of ruining people that have like motor disabilities. They come out of nowhere, and they might want you to just press a button really fast or just press a button over time really fast. And some people might not be able to do it. And if that happens, can they even proceed? Will it ruin their experience? Most likely. And from what it sounds like, it did ruin the experience because you're not able to do it.
Yeah, I wasn't able to get past. And then when I eventually did get past, the difficulty level was dropped down ridiculously.
Yeah, the dynamic difference. Does anyone know any other examples of motor? Yeah.
Just to bring something funny at the table, the reason why this became a thing is because in God of War, there's a scene in which they wanted you to feel very satisfied about the moment, and that's when they had the idea of making the mash pressing very fast, right? To give you this satisfaction moment of like, oh, I'm like, yeah, I'm killing this guy, right? But the problem is that then games decided to grab these elements, mechanic, and use it in parts that honestly sometimes it's not even necessary, and it doesn't have that moment. It doesn't have, so it's not even. At some point, it was there just to be there because other games used it, and that's also like.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like a copycat effect, where you're kind of doing it because some other popular game did it, and for all the wrong reasons. It sounds more like they're doing it to be more like attention grabby and engagement, like force engagement, rather than actually like do the button prompt. And the sad part is, some of these quick time events, you could just fail them and it doesn't even do anything. It's just Sonic Forces, for instance. I believe if you don't do this button prompt, it does not change the game at all. The game, you can still proceed even failing this quick time event. So you have to ask the question, why do we even have these?
So it's not even player choice going back to this last 2 weeks.
Yeah. It's just it's meaningless. And it's not just quick time events. You can also have like automatic weapons, for instance. You know, you have to press the trigger multiple times to use the weapon, right? Well, if you have to shoot someone really fast and you're not able to do it, maybe the game might not be beatable at that point, or you might need some help. There was also, yeah, I believe those are the two I can think of off the top of my head. Does anyone else have any other examples? Yes.
Playing rhythm games when it's cold is the worst.
That sounds, yeah.
Because your hands are then frozen, and you're like, I can't do drum rolls anymore. I have to move my entire hand.
Yeah, sounds about right.
I remember I would go to tournaments, right? But before going to tournaments, I have to walk through the cold. So I would get to the tournament.
Oh, you had to warm
and
up.
I couldn't warm up because this is my match, and I'm like, I have to press a lot of buttons fast, so I'm like, I cannot even.
In a way, that's almost like simulating what they have to go through.
Yeah.
It also illustrates the curve cut effect.
Yes.
This is pure unadulterated curve cut effect.
So there are lots of ways we could alleviate this problem. And I can also discuss like what the curve cut effect does here. So for instance, does anyone know Spider-Man Homecoming? Or the video game? The video game. Yeah,
The movie, I was like, wait.
My bad. But yeah, in the settings, you're actually able to turn on autocomplete for these quick time events. Does anyone know how that could actually apply the curve effect?
Because everyone has the option of choosing to do so.
People just find it annoying and get rid of it and not have to worry about it.
Exactly. I'm also one of those people. If I had the option, I would just get rid of them completely because they're just annoying more than anything.
People with cold hands now aren't cursing the fact that they live in a cold place.
Wishing they had a heater.
Yeah, also remapping controls is another thing we could do. You know, some buttons might be too compact for certain people to like use control-wise, and so giving the option to remap your controls to a more wider spread can actually also help people with like motor disabilities. Yes.
I hope I'm not playing ahead, but there's this video by Mark Brown, which he brings something interesting that we can bring right here. And it's so when you're making a game as a designer, he points out there's two things that are the key things a game should have. From a designer perspective, the first thing is that the designer has full control of the game and what the game should be, and he should have the power and the right to make the game whatever he wants it to be.
Mm-hmm.
The second is that players should be able to play the game however they want to play the game. And obviously those two contradict each other very hardly, right? It's like, because those can be the complete opposites, right? So that brings this, I think that's very important in this topic, right? That we are talking about where is the middle ground of this, right? Because someone may argue, if you remap the controls, maybe when the designers were doing the controls, they want this trigger to be to A action because they know that this is gonna help to the like the dynamic of the effect of the move, right? But at the same time, if you limit the players might not want to do it with that one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's really nice to have settings like this, because you give players the power to change things. And like, are you gonna talk about assist modes?
No, I am not.
Okay, so this is basically assist mode. Like
Yeah.
the band that introduced this was Celeste, because when some games will do this really bad, that they will say like helper or they will be like easy mode, and that's kind of like patronizing in a way,
Mhm.
and people don't want that. So a good name that they used was assist mode, which was also now using Mario Odyssey, in which assist mode is basically you are able to play the game, but you can change many settings like that very much in there in order to make the player play the game how they wanted to play. And I think this is good because it catches the best of both worlds, right? If the players want to play the game how it's intended, the settings are by default what the designer intended it to be, right? But it would be foolish for us as designers not to realize that in one of our games we're making, the demographic is so big that we are targeting so many people, it's impossible that everybody will like it. So it is our responsibility to make some sort of like assist mode that we can maybe tell them like, this is the way to play the game, but for any circumstances you can change in assist mode and you can change things like that. And you will basically be helping everyone.
Yeah, the whole idea of like not one size fits all.
Yeah.
So giving options to help like even able players to like play, like have those options in hand just to make the game experience better for them in the long run. Which is why we refer to the cut curve effect for a lot of these. Yes.
So it would be like remapping Smash grid controls kind of thing in Smash 4 and Smash Ultimate and consider like a curve effect.
Yeah.
So it helps with disabilities and also helps with people who like have custom things.
About the custom controls.
And it even help even help furthermore because some people like to have specific controls depending on the movement of the characters. So like to me it doesn't really matter. If I have a specific layout that helps me specifically for X character that I'm using. So yeah, at the end of the day, we all won. That's a good choice.
Cool. Any other questions before we move on to the next one? All right. So I want to discuss the title here, but if you take a look at this game, does it look simple to play, right? Right? Like, the rules are pretty straightforward. There's colors, and you just match the colors, and you just play the game. What if the game looks like this? What is that? What is that part right on the left? Like, which colors are which? Why are they not matching? They all look the same. This is color blindness, and this can be a problem if you're designing your games around color, because some players are unable to see certain colors. And there's a little chart here to kind of simulate what colors they will see in the real world based on like reds, greens, and it is very big because I think us designers most of the time we use red to distinct bad and green for good, right? But what happens if they both cannot see? So any questions about color blindness?
How, like, do you just for people to just follow by their demographic of people who can't see color, you just ask them what they can't see or can see, or like, how do you kind of measure for that?
There are lots of ways we could actually just like prevent this from the get-go, even if for someone without color blindness.
Just by like shape and other things like that?
Yep.
Using different indicators as well?
Yeah.
You can kind of just, if you want to catch everyone, you just kind of assume that no one can see any colors and then you're fine.
Make everything look black and white.
Which I should also ask. Oh, yes.
Aren't there certain colors that are like less acceptable, I guess?
Less acceptable?
Or more discernible, I guess, for people with color blindness.
There are multiple different types of color blindness, but there are a lot of tools we can use to like simulate it, or just, like as Brian said, just assume no one can see color and just like design your game around that, and that way you can like avoid this kind of problem that this game did.
The number is 8% of men are colorblind. So 8% in the world is a big number if you think about it.
Healthy Magic the Gathering, make your game colorblind friendly. It's really easy and it's important.
Magic the Gathering's not colorblind friendly?
It's not, because they added the color indicator. If you have the color indicator, that's the only thing that tells you what color the card is, and they're red and green. The color indicator does not get a symbol.
Oh.
Wait,
And so
what?
you can't tell a red card from a green card except by looking at the texture.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Wait, so there's no circle for...
Well, do you know what the color indicator is? If a card does not have a mana cost, instead it gets a color indicator that overrides it and expands it to the game text. Oh, this card is this color. Those
like
things are
circle.
just a colored circle, meaning that you can't, meaning that the red card and the green card can't be told apart except for by the background texture.
I forgot about that, but yeah, you're right.
Which is why they need to put the mana symbols in the color indicator. They don't. It annoys me.
Is it okay if we see an example of that later? Because I'm not like visualizing.
It's on double-sided grid, actually.
Yeah. So actually,
those. Yeah.
I should ask. So do we have any solutions to help with color blindness? Keeping this in mind.
Be like the jewel, and each one has a different shape, gem or something, or yeah.
Anyone else? basically the main idea. Using shapes is probably the simplest way to go about it.
Or numbers.
There's also filters too, aren't there?
I believe there are filters that you can turn on colorblind mode to make more distinct colors. I'm not sure how effective those are because I don't know if certain fields can see certain colors. I think it's safer if we just do stuff like this, since it seems like the simplest answer to this problem is to help visualize color. Yeah.
Are there certain colors that are like easier to distinguish if you're colorblind, like blues or?
Seeing this chart right here, it looks like blues are very distinct.
It's kind of hard to tell because it
Yeah.
depends on the color blindness.
So if you look
Yeah.
down at
Yellow.
Trip 10 Nokia,
They can't see green.
they've got two blues, they got three blues
Yeah.
and columns in green.
Well, Tritanopia only sees blues and pinks. So it's kind of like, they all kind of like mismatch each other. Yeah, so it's kind of hard.
But it looks like blue and red is always distinguishable.
Yeah.
No. Some people might be blue-red colorblind. Like they see mostly greens.
So like your options will be,
Yeah.
Like, as someone who actually does have red-green color blindness, it's not really that I can't tell the difference between any shades of red and green. It's more like specific shades just happen to blend into each other. So I find that a setting that actually really helps me in games is those settings that actually do help make more distinct colors, like the filters as mentioned earlier.
Do you play League?
No, but I do play Overwatch a little bit, and Overwatch
Oh,
does
yeah.
have that.
Oh, okay. And that's pretty effective?
Yeah.
Okay. I know League has a colorblind mode, and I'm not sure how effective it is, because it's mostly just turning the purples into reds and blues into like darker blues. I'm not sure how effective those might be, because if someone can't see blue or red, I have a feeling they're gonna have a hard time. Maybe. I'm not able to test that myself, so.
There's also a concept in informatics which I can't remember the name of and I'm having a hard time Googling, but there's ideas where if you have a large field of objects, you're very easily able to pick things out by color, shape, orientation, size, and a couple other categories.
Like
And you should always be using those anyways to tell things apart. So if you're losing color, you're fine because you have three other things you can tell things apart by.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it might have been similarity.
yeah, it's one of the last. You can basically,
Shells.
you can put items together based on their proximity and on their shape and color.
So like stoplights, you know where like red is always
Yeah,
gonna be on the
that's why.
Yeah, buttons. Okay. Yeah.
So yeah. So like on the left, Puzzles and Dragons, they have symbols on their colors, so even if you can't see, like they have symbols to determine which three you're matching. And Uno actually did this recently. I don't have these type of Uno cards back then, but they actually have symbols now on the top corners of the cards. So now you can see which color is which just based on a symbol, which I think is pretty cool. I don't have these type of Uno cards. These like came out recently.
I'm very bad over like the yellow is just a line though. It's very hard to like just see that. It's like
White and yellow, the contrast.
yeah, the white and
At
yellow.
least you know the one you can't see is yellow, right?
Yeah.
Especially, this might just be the screen, not the actual card.
Yeah, that's also true. And also, can we apply cut curve effect here?
Low light settings, people might just, the shades just might be similar.
It's enjoyable to look at the different textures and you get a better feeling of like what this texture is about. So like the water one kind of looks like water, the blue one kind of looks like water. So you're like, oh, it's water, and you get
It makes more
better feeling of what the concept.
Yeah.
of
It could also help, like with people who just memorize symbols more than color, like it might just help them visualize it.
If you think of it like, to add to that, like aesthetically, right? If you're playing this game, it's just balls of colors, like whatever. But like if you add like symbols, it can be more like magical, it look more like stones, magical stones. But it helps with the whole feeling of the game overall.
I believe this is my last slide on colorblind. Oh no, I don't. There's actually one other thing. Who here uses Unity? There's a free asset to help you test your colors. So you can download this asset and it will show you what your game looks like in all the different types of colorblindness. So since colorblind is kind of the hardest one to test if you want to use colors, you can just use this asset and the work will be done for you. As you can see, like he used greens and reds on the bottom and now it just blends in all three of them. So now you'll know like, oh crap, maybe I should change that. So yeah. Any questions? Alright, we can move on. Anyone read that? It's what the waitress is saying.
No problem.
Hey, you can see it.
I'm taking off my glasses.
Oh, I know, right?
Yeah.
No glasses, I can't even see the text. Waitress, colon, no problem.
I mean, that is what it says, yes.
I can't even see the text anymore.
Yeah, I can't.
So I
It's like
can't even see her.
it's like
This also
a
just
line.
seems like a strange choice, because, like, why is this text so tiny, but, like, the
Yeah.
credits are so big? It's like, why not just make them all the same size? Why not just make them all big?
To distinguish the
Like, I don't know. It seems very strange to me.
Okay, what's even worse is in the credits, the top text is like great.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, great, yeah.
I can't even see that from here, and I'm standing in front of it. Ulterior environment.
They don't want to be noted. They don't even know what their work is. Like, I don't want to be
Yeah.
appreciated.
So as you can see, tiny text is not fun. It's not fun to read, even for someone who's standing right next to it. I can't even see that.
And that's in the screen right now, like just standing.
Yeah,
and
that's
if it's like an action scene or anything is moving around.
Yeah.
It's gonna be impossible.
Exactly. And also for people in the back, they probably have a even harder time seeing this. It's like, imagine playing this game on your TV screen,
What are
trying to
they
figure out what
saying?
they're saying. So yeah. So low vision. Some players may not be able to read text from far away. Maybe the text is too small, maybe there's lack of contrast. Possibly both, as you'll see in some of my examples. And it's something we should also keep in mind when we want to like tell a story and put subtitles. We should probably not think of subtitles as something that we're forced to do, but rather something we can actually use to help the players. Because from my assumption, looking at some of these examples, it almost seems like the developers didn't want to put subtitles, and it's just kind of there in the default 12 font. That's just what it kind of seems like to me, because I'll show you. So on the next slide. Oh, sorry, yes.
On the way, like, source games, how they do, is that a good example, or is that bad? Where, like, it's like a black overlay, like, text box, and then white text.
Yes, those are actually good examples of, like, how you can do it.
Like actual TV has some laws and regulations on what they can have and how the styles should look, and how long a sentence is at a time when they are actually, like, when you have credits in TV. Games, obviously, we don't have that.
So yeah, I'll show you a couple examples of what I mean. So this is XCOM. Can anyone see that? We have gray subtitles and a black background and tiny text and multiple lines.
A small number of.
XCOM 2, I'm disappointed.
Again, repeat the mistakes of
And also, and think of like playing this game on a TV screen on your bed, like that's where or on a couch. That's where most people are playing games. People like around that area. That's about how far the TV might be from you.
With moving parts. True.
And this is just a still image of it. Imagine like moving components in the scene, or like you walking around.
It gives you 2 seconds to read it.
Yeah, and think about that. Yeah, it's 2 seconds to read, like 2 lines of text. That's super tiny. How are you gonna do that?
If these trivial actions can never break the bond between humanity and elders, the elders.
So this is something we definitely want to avoid. This is lack of contrast of the subtitles, and it's tiny. We could easily just like bump the font up a little bit, cut the lines up a bit, and maybe change the color of the subtitles, so that way we can avoid having problems reading this.
Or have less words.
And yeah, exactly.
Also probably covers more than, I'll assume that this is some sort of narration going on at the same time.
Yeah.
So it probably covers more text than they're reading at the time.
That's also, yep. That's also
So then it's kind of awkward.
And second example, God of War 3. Oh boy.
Where are the subtitles?
Yeah, they actually, I give them a hard time here, but actually they did come up with a patch that allows you to change the size of their subtitles to a bigger font, because a lot of players complained that they couldn't read the subtitles. So they did eventually help fix the problem, but in the beginning of its release, they just became part of the problem.
My question is, why didn't any of the playtesters say anything at first then?
Well, it's
They're already exposed to them.
They are exposed to it.
They're probably not looking for stuff like this. They're probably looking for bugs.
True.
Like, unless you have.
testers would look for bugs.
Hmm?
QA testers look for bugs.
Yeah.
Play testers play.
Oh, the playtest.
Yeah. Play testers are just like, hey, you guy, come play our game. You have fun.
Ah, okay. My bad then. But yeah, but I'm pretty sure maybe like even if I were to play test a game like this is probably not the first thing I'm looking for.
It's not in their priority list.
Yeah.
Like when everybody's busy, that's somebody wants.
We don't know at what point that was just thrown on.
Added. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it might have been on like the
That
end of
people
development or
may
like,
have play tested without that, or a lot of the QA could have happened before that was just attached.
So let's say this cutscene is like, I don't know, 20 seconds long, but they say all these words. You cannot put that in, unless you make each thing like 1 second each sentence, it will happen. So you cannot put it in, so they have to make long sentences.
so I actually have an example that is a good example somewhere here. Was it here? Did I take out the slide? There was one with like Assassin's Creed. Oh, and maybe it's later on. But yeah. So I have some solutions in later slides where we can actually like make it so we can see the subtitles with like lack of with like big contrast and like who's saying what and like having subtitles. So it's to help improve the subtitles in development. So yeah. Also, this one's the easiest one to test because you can just like play your game far away from the screen and just see if you can even read the text. So, and also we could apply the, anyone want to see if you can apply the cut curve effect here as well?
Makes it easier to read what's going on, even if your vision pretty good.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're just playing on a smaller screen, so you have to account for like different resolutions.
I want to play on mute with my music.
Yeah, maybe you have a kid in the next room who's sleeping and you can't play the game with your loudspeakers.
Or just have a roommate.
That's also true. So yeah, having good subtitles actually benefits everyone. But these developers, maybe they don't know that.
Or if one of the characters has a really thick accent.
And
It's like, I don't want to listen to your accent.
And what if the sound isn't mixed well? And you can't hear dialogue sometimes.
Yep. That's also another thing.
There's a lot of background noise after
Yeah.
your parents don't want you to play the game with sound on right now.
Yeah. So any questions about low vision before we move on? All right. Now, this is the last one I want to discuss for this workshop, and it's deaf or hard of hearing. Now, they're both different in their own ways, but I kind of grouped them together because the idea behind it is the same. People hard of hearing are not necessarily deaf, but they just can't hear certain things. But nevertheless, I put them together because a lot of the solutions and problems are basically grouped together in the same place. So yeah, first off, anyone's know any problems that you could arise if a player might be deaf?
If it's combined with the bad thing we were just looking at with vision, then you can't understand what anyone is saying.
Yep.
Because you can't hear them and you can't see what's on the text.
Yep.
Overwatch and Paladin, when they use their ultimate, then they get like that sound.
I actually have that slide.
Oh.
Yes. But yeah, good thing you brought it up. But also, what if you're playing a game that relies on sound? What if you have like a really good audio design? And you're like, yeah, I got this awesome music. It's gonna play well with the game. I also got like all these different sounds playing off. What if a player can't hear anything?
What happens if they play, those app games where you're blind, right? And you rely on sound and someone's deaf and playing the game?
Yeah.
That's my question. I'm like, wait.
You would do a game based on like, maybe on like touch.
Yeah.
What if a game is purely reliant on voice acting? We have a couple VGDC pitches that are like sound, voice acting. If they don't keep these things in mind, what if a deaf player plays their game?
Exactly.
That's gonna be a problem.
How does that work?
It might ruin the experience. So that's just something, this is actually pretty important to keep in mind because can they even progress? Can they even enjoy your game if like you rely so much on sound? And so some players might not be able to hear audio cues or background music, and we should keep that in mind, that if we are implementing these kind of things, we also need to do some other stuff to help them out. So any other examples of like audio being a problem?
In boss battles all the time, when you have before a boss attacks or anything, you get some sort of like warning so the player can read what's gonna happen and take action with that. A lot of times it's animation and sound. So that might be harder for players to know. And they're in a disadvantage for people that were not able to control that. can get very frustrating to die over and over again against a boss that only gives you a sound cue.
Yeah.
Like he mentioned, there are some games where like, since you have free control over camera, you might be turned around, but you hear the boss behind you like roaring, and you're like, oh, I should move.
Yeah, you might not necessarily know that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have a couple examples here that we can discuss. Undertale. So, I mean, let me just put a disclaimer. Toby Fox actually did fix this eventually. He made a patch in which if you stand at this section for a while, you'll actually see the patterns like at the top that you need to input. So if you just stand here for a little bit, you actually are given the answer.
It's after like 10 seconds.
Yeah. But even then, that's like, how do you know to wait that long? You might not know that. It's not perfect, but
I think it appears earlier than you are able to finish the melody.
oh, okay.
So you cannot guarantee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought it was like you have to wait.
No, it's really fast.
Okay, in that case, that's fine. But yeah, but early on, this puzzle really was just relying on you knowing like the sound of the music and like inputting the arrow keys and the buttons to make sure that it matched the melody of this. And if you're deaf, this is impossible. Now I forget if this was a side quest or was it a side quest?
Yeah.
So it's not too big of a deal here, I guess. But you know, we can see other games in which it is a much bigger deal.
That guy is it's very hard to miss him. Like you will see him and you will be curious what the hell, and then if you don't hear it, it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know what's the point with that.
Cool. Another example. This is one. You remember your conversation earlier? This is where I kind of want to discuss because competitive games might have an inverse effect if you are designing around usability. So for instance, Overwatch. Ultimates have different sound cues depending on whether an ally or enemy is using an ultimate. So for instance, McCree, I think, says step right up, here it's an ally, and it's in a very calm tone, so you know it's friendly. But then you hear High Noon with reverb, and you know, oh crap, he's gonna shoot me, and you have to hide. But the problem is that there is no, there is no setting to actually like visualize when a person is using their ultimate, right? I don't think so.
You have to be able to see them.
Yeah.
And there's like that effect going on in them, but if they're behind you, you have to turn around and find them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Do the subtitles in the game kind of like have the thing with like star, water splash, star, explosion?
They don't have
Yeah.
subtitles?
I think this gets to a very slippery slope place because like when they make Overwatch, right? One of the most important things when you're making a game is user experience, right? And what you want to do when user experience, especially in a first-person shooter, is that you want to have as little as possible in front of the screen. Because imagine, I don't know if any of you have played like MMOs or whatever, and just imagine playing that MMO and you have how many buttons you had. Like I used to play this on Forsaken World, and you have like over 20 buttons all around the screen. And I'm like, okay, skill window open, buffs, debuffs, inventory, 3 columns,
with all their buffs and debuffs,
skills, quests, no, like that.
monster.
Right, so that gets kind of annoying. It gets in your way. So good user experience is like in here, right? Like you have none of that interviewing between you and the experience of the game, right? So that's why people from Blizzard decided to use sound effects and things like that to minimize how much information gets in the way of the player. But that again, Sean is saying that can be a double-edged sword because now we are facing this problem of usability.
And you kind of shot yourself in the foot because you're doing this for player experience, but then for some of your players, they're not getting the experience you wanted them to get because it's not getting across to them, right?
It's inconsistent experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfair.
And Oscar, you remember what you said earlier, right? Like it's possible for like to implement something that actually has the inverse effect and can actually hurt player experience. And this is basically it.
To this one though. For I think Fortnite does it.
Yeah.
Where they have like the
I'm aware.
circle and they have the indicators of where bullets are coming from, where chests are.
Oh yeah, that's a classic.
Yeah, the sound ring.
Yeah.
The only thing I remember is that I was actually curious about this Overwatch thing because I was like, is there actually a setting to like for ultimates and stuff? There is no setting, and I went on a Blizzard forum and there was actually a thread in which a deaf person was complaining that they can't play the game because they're dying to like these ultimates and they don't even know where they're coming from. and a bunch of people. Well, it's pretty toxic for not thinking about it, but there was a lot of regular players that were just like, just don't play the game because like I don't want you to implement something that's gonna ruin my experience.
Just really.
It's a little hostile.
Yeah.
But maybe that's what Blizzard was thinking, is that if you implement something like this, then it gets in the way of able players and like all this stuff.
But that's when you
That's like me playing devil's advocate. Of course, like you can implement a way out.
That's when you will make assist mode. You will make an assist mode that lets you do a Fortnite and happy hour.
Yeah.
That way they both win, right? People don't complain, and then there's dead people who are also as important in playing into the game.
I have a feeling that people might complain because if you are the McCree in that situation, then everyone knows you're using ultimate, rather than anyone who has to listen to you. Now it's just like, I see McCree using
You
ultimate.
only put it on the sound ring if you would hear the audio cue anyway.
Yeah, so it just happens at the same time. You will get the same warning.
I'm just saying, as like, if I play devil's advocate, I'm not saying that's the answer.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but now, yeah, you just put it on the sound ring as frequently as you would play, and as clearly as you would play the audio cue. You know, it's like, hey, the audio cue's hard to listen for. Cool. I'm just gonna, fade out the sound ring a little bit, so now it's hard to see, right?
I mean, the excuse would be it takes time, money, and
as far as I know, also most of the ultimates are global sound. They are not directional. I think for like I remember that being a thing.
I believe it is like global, yeah.
Yeah, so you need to know what's happening, which you can do in like the kill feed because they have the kill feed, but you don't need to know where it is because like half of the I guess interest of the ultimate is to figure out where they are.
Yeah.
And you have visual indicators for that.
So I guess like if you just need to be very careful, but it is possible for something like this. I mean, Fortnite, they made a sound ring, and I believe mobile does it better because I heard in the computer I think you have to like turn off sound in order to use it, which is kind of weird. But nevertheless, I know mobile you can turn on the sound ring, and it actually gives you like by like 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, all that. It'll like bolden up certain points that are like shooting sounds or footstep sounds, and so you can actually see based on your coordinates. Oh, someone's shooting me from this direction. I should do something about that. And even if you can't hear the sound, you still know because it has a sound. Same with Minecraft, I think too. Minecraft has like a system now that actually shows you left or right which sound is for like a bat sound or like a zombie sound is coming from. And so when you turn around, you know like kind of where the sound is coming from.
Also, this is like a big parenthesis. Sometimes people won't play your game with sound. A very common example is mobile games. I made a mobile game, and one of my big errors was when I was playtesting it. I did not playtest it in an actual environment. I was playtesting it with people who had like a headgear and they were playing it like full experience. In actuality, when you're playtesting, you want to mimic the place where people will be playing this. And when you're using your phone, you'll probably have it on mute, and you'll probably be doing something else when you're playing it. As a result, I had like a special ability that once you kill enough enemies, your health bar gets like on, which you can use like an ultimate basically, and it will do like a very like shoo like effect, right, to like indicate that it's like fully ready to go. But when people were playing the game, I realized that they didn't even know you could actually use that ability because they never heard the button because you were also mute.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty good. I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah.
So yeah. Do I have one more slide here? I think this is the. Yeah, this is the slide I wanted to show earlier. The subtitles thing. We're coming back to that because subtitles actually do kind of bleed into this subject because deaf people or hard of hearing people will want good subtitles. Otherwise, you get like XCOM and like not only can you not hear what's going on, but you don't know what's going on. You can't read it. But in Assassin's Creed, they have subtitles in which they show a person's name and what they're saying with a slightly transparent black box behind it. So you're actually able to clearly read it, and of course it's only like a small bit of text, so you're actually able to digest it before it moves on. So this is a good example of what we could do if we want to put subtitles in our game. I believe also Tomb Raider does this as well. I think Tomb Raider, and they actually use colors as well in addition, which could also be problematic. It's colorblind, but nevertheless it's trying.
They use color, but they also pattern it.
But they're trying.
Well, yeah, there's
Never perfect.
You don't necessarily need, especially when you're doing UI, not everyone needs to be able to perceive everything. It's just everyone needs to be able to perceive everything important, right? So if you just give people a bajillion cues, if every individual person picks up on, 90% of a bajillion cues, cool, everyone gets the information, right?
thoughts on what we discussed so far? Yes.
Another kind of curve effect for this is streaming or voice chat.
Yeah.
If you are in a multiplayer game and you have voice chat, you usually want your voice chat above your game sound so that it's just generally more important, which means that you might miss game cues, and having that is very useful here. Same if you're streaming, the streamer's voice is always above the game sound, because otherwise you're just watching a person playing a game with maybe voice in the background. And therefore people who are just watching this game can also see what's going on, understand what's going on, enjoy pretty much the full game experience if you have this done correctly, versus I can't hear anything.
Yeah, like that's also a good thing to help with like people with hard of hearing, because it's not necessarily that they're deaf, but they just pick up on certain things, but they miss on other things. So they might want to prioritize certain things like game sounds or voice chat, and maybe like reduce background music and like other stuff, so that it doesn't get in the way of their hearing. Because if there's too much noise pollution, they can't pick up on anything. So settings like that will allow you to prioritize which sounds you hear, and then kind of put other sounds on the lower end. So if you don't pick those up, no big deal. You actually got this sound. So
there is an even smaller subpoint about tinnitus, where the stereotypical flashbang sound will actually cause a tinnitus person pain. Where it's the loud ringing can cause pain. So stuff like that, keep in mind.
Yeah. So to help players who lack the ability to hear sounds, we can help them visualize them. Good subtitles, showing the location of sounds. If your game relies a lot on like visual sound cues or like voice acting, make sure to help players who cannot hear it. And again, this one's pretty easy to test as well, because if you literally just put your game on mute, can you still play it? If yes, you're good. If no, maybe change something. And I believe we applied the cut curve effect earlier, but if anyone else wants to add anything to that, feel free. No?
One thing that's like, like uptake sound a lot, it's good to have like those kind of curve for seeing where everything is.
Yeah. So yep, I believe that's about it. So I mean, how many of you watch Mark Brown? You probably knew that these slides are pretty similar to what a series of videos he did. And that's basically how I made these slides, is that I went over some of the main points in his video and kind of like applied them to real life examples that I found as well, and how we can like help make a discussion about this kind of thing. And so the top 3 videos are the ones that are mostly on this slide. But also he did come up with a video yesterday, like literally yesterday, about cognitive disabilities. And that's also, I would say, go watch that as well, because I didn't cover that in these slides, and that's also pretty important to help people with like short-term memory or like autism or anything like that. And yeah, of course, these workshops can't cover every aspect of those videos, but please watch these, they're pretty good. And that's about it. Thank you for all coming.